also continue to allow government entities to outsource from the companies involved in this alarming exploitation of poor security officers. The National Council of the Private Security Sector Bargaining Council main collective agreement extended to February 2027 regulates wages, benefits and conditions for security officers. Despite this, comrades, compliance has collapsed nationally. Of the 11,372 registered private security companies operating in South Africa, less than 2,000 companies are in full compliance. You can imagine, comrades. The Financial Sector Conduct Authority, popularly known as SIRA, has identified 2,224 companies that failed to pay over retirement fund contributions. This is catastrophic. The pension fund adjudicators received 2,477 complaints in 1 year regarding unpaid benefits. Even so, many security companies doing business with government had not registered their security officers with the private sector provident fund, even though they deducting money for provident fund every month. This adversely affects security officers when they retire or their contract terminates, which is a common recurrence for security officers. Not paying over money to the designated provident fund is nothing else but fraud and a violation of the main collective agreement of the bargaining council. Approximately 145 million rands is stolen from workers' provident fund deductions every month. About 67 million per month in medical insurance contribution is stolen from security officers. Millions more are stolen from security officers through non-payment of the UIF. This fraud exposes the security officers to catastrophic spending when they are between jobs. Poorly paid workers are always at the risk of sinking even further into the poverty because of the adverse effects of contract termination, dismissals, illness, and injuries on duty. They are not just administrative errors. These are not just administrative errors, comrades. This is organized wage theft, enabled by state institutions that continue to contract or to do business with criminals or offenders. The Madlanga Commission hearings have further illuminated this crisis, revealing how criminal syndicates have infiltrated private security firms to facilitate tender fraud and contract killings. It is said, Comrade Minister Kotongwane, that these non-compliant security providers exploit procurement loopholes to divert state funds intended for worker benefits into their bottomless pockets. Number 3, government complicity and oversight failures. The Minister of Finance and National Treasurer as a whole have allowed the continued outsourcing of security contracts to non-compliant companies, including those guarding national key points and government buildings. The ongoing Madlanga Commission also, interim fundings, warn of a tight knot of criminals involving the private security sector, where state procurement unwittingly or deliberately bankrolls these operations. Just as you required municipalities to prove payment to water boards before receiving transfers, we demand, Comrade Minister, that government entities prove compliant with labor and collective bargaining laws before contracting private security providers. Treasurers in action perpetuate this capture, eroding public trust in both justice and fiscal government. Therefore, in this context, our demands are as follows: that we demand exclusion of all contracts with private security firms that are not fully compliant with the industry main collective agreement. We demand that the same resolve that Treasurer showed in withholding funds from municipalities indebted to water boards must now be shown towards department, municipalities, and state-owned enterprises that fund labor exploitation through procurement. We demand the blacklisting of such companies from all future tenders unless and only if they can provide a valid private security industry SIRA registration certificate proving that indeed the company is in good standing. Before SIRA can give you or issue you a certificate in good standing, they would have done a number of cross-checks. Secondly, we demand that a company to access a tender in any government department must have produced a certificate proving that the company is in good standing. You can only acquire that certificate once and only once the bargaining council has done the cross-check and has certified itself that indeed you are complying with all the statutes of the Republic of South Africa. Those are one of our demands, that not each and every Dick, Tom, and Harry security company must get a business in government. Compliance to the legislation must be a prerequisite, nothing else and nothing more. We demand that all the tender requirements, documentation must be overhauled and make these requirements a requirement before any security business company can get a contract and do business with government. We have repeatedly said that government is the custodian of the laws of this country, and therefore that comes with a heavy responsibility over the arms of government to ensure that the laws are enforced. It is a serious contradiction for government departments to willingly do business with companies that are in non-compliance, that are in constant violation of the law. We demand the establishment of a national compliance registrar accessible to all supply chain officials across all departments in government. And over and above that, we demand accountability. And under the demand of accountability, we say the following: that we expect government through the Treasury Department to enforce consequence management for accounting officers and the SMM officials who ignore compliance. We know for sure that some of government officials, they give contracts to companies whom they know for sure that are not in compliance with the law, precisely because of the exchange of brown envelopes that happens overnight and through the days. It is not true of lack of knowledge that non-compliant companies are given business. It is precisely because of corruption. Corruption and corruption and corruption. Down with corruption, down. Number 4, we have a problem, comrades, in the industry. The abuse and the unregulated use of learnership by many private security companies, only driven by their desire to maximize profit at the expense of workers. We therefore demand the prohibition of the abuse of learners and cooperatives used to bypass the main collective obligations. We demand that the department or treasurer and government as a whole should declare such fraudulent training scheme as a form of modern day of slavery, warranting to criminal action. Over and above that, we demand that there must be an immediate expansion of treasurer's enforcement mechanism used against fraudulent municipalities to include non-compliant state contractors. We demand that they should withhold accountable share or equitable share or conditional grants from organs of state that persist in contracting non-compliant security companies. In short and in essence, we are demanding that government departments who continue to trade and do business with companies that are not respecting the laws, they must be penalized, and they must be penalized effectively. Our principle, therefore, is that security officers are frontline workers, protecting communities, protecting state assets and criminal infrastructure. Yet they remain victims of systematic fraud and state-enabled exploitation. Just as the treasurer acted to protect sustainability of water boards, it must now act to protect the livelihoods of workers whose funds and futures are being stolen. The Madanga Commission exposure of cartel infiltration demands that treasurer treat private security procurement not as a routine business or a routine business, but as a front line in the war against organized crime. The deadline and escalation, we demand that a formal written response within 7 working days of receipt of this memorandum. Failure to act will demand and will compel us as a group of 5 trade unions to escalate lawful protest and mobilization under this campaign, which we have themed as a Pay Back the Money campaign. We will petition the President of the Republic of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, to authorize the SIU to investigate all the departments and state-owned entities contracting non-compliant companies building and will be riding on the waves already built by the Madanga Commission. We will publicly expose all organs of state that continue to violate the main collective agreement. As I conclude, comrades, we know and I can see the sun is too hot, and some of you have been here as early as 3 o'clock this morning. We therefore conclude by saying, Minister of Finance, your decisive intervention in the municipality water board crisis has demonstrated that treasurer can lead from the front when governance collapses. We now demand the same resolve to end the theft of billions from the poorest workers in the security industry. there can be no value for money in government procurement when that money is stolen from the working class and funneled into the hands of greedy bosses and alleged operatives of cartels. Comrades, therefore, on your behalf, we hand over this memorandum, and as we do, we call upon the delegated person from the department to come over, climb into the truck to receive the memorandum. The person assigned by government is invited to join us on the podium. That is very important because you, the workers, must witness the signing of this memorandum.
Here is the government official to come and receive the memorandum. The poor lady, she was shaking all along.
Comrades, we are embarking on a formal process now to hand over the memorandum. The protocol will therefore demand that the person assigned by government be allowed to introduce herself, tell us her designation in government, and tell us what they intend to do with this government. I'm therefore going to allow this beautiful lady on my left-hand side to introduce herself and say 2 words on behalf of the department and government as a whole.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Amanda.
My name is Laura Mseme. I am the head of the Office of the Director General of National Treasury. This is to confirm that we are receiving your memorandum on behalf of the Minister of Finance and the Director General of National Treasury, who are currently occupied with matters related to the MTBPS.